One thing I really can't get behind is having to run between 100 and 200 kilometers per week in order to increase my 5K, 10K, and marathon pace time. However, one piece of advice that people always give is that if you want to increase your pace, is that you have to do more miles each week. However, I don't have the time to be running 100, 200 kilometers per week, especially with a full-time job. What I'm going to show you is that you can achieve 90% of your potential, which is running 40, 50 kilometers per week with one very simple framework. My name is Luke. I've done multiple marathons, multiple ultra marathons, and I also run a business that sells endurance nutrition products. Firstly, please scrap the idea that you have to do 200 or 100 kilometers per week in order to get a faster time. And this has obviously been publicized by the likes of Alex E, Ran to Japan, and that those guys run 200, 280 kilometers per week. And why do they have to do that? Okay, so a stat that I found very beneficial is that we achieve 90% of our physiological potential via aerobic power by just running 40 to 50 kilometers per week. Okay, so this saves us oodles of time, right? Loads of time, right? Because I found that when I was trying to hit those 100k weeks, that I barely had time to have my dinner, like outside work, and just spend time with family and the likes. So we achieve 90% of our potential by just running 40, 50 kilometers per week. Why do the likes of the professionals like Kipchoge, Alex E run 200 kilometers? That's because, so these guys are out to win marathons, they're out to win gold medals and the likes. So we achieve 9% by 40, 50 kilometers per week. That extra 10% that they're looking to achieve, they have to do that distance. However, so for the likes of us, that they like, who I never have an intention of winning a race, that additional 10% can only be got by doing those crazy distances. So you're increasing your mitochondria count, your capillary count as well. But what I'm going to explain to you is that, so if we want to get faster but run less, all we have to do is essentially obviously increase your mitochondria and your capillaries. So how I like to think of this is that so your capillaries are the blood vessels wrapped around your muscles. They encapsulate your muscles, and these are kind of like the roads or the highways. So they deliver oxygen to your muscles. Obviously we need oxygen to perform and obviously increase energy. They also clear lactate. So lactate is that kind of like burning sensation you feel after repeated use of the muscle. And then we have mitochondria. So mitochondria are the powerhouses within our muscles. So the mitochondria are these cells responsible for converting sugar, oxygen, fat into energy, so we can run further and run faster. Most importantly, so here's the framework. So this is called the highway framework. So research has found that doing these 3 exercises once per week has been found to increase your running potential up to 90% of where you could be. So increase your aerobic power, increase your mitochondria count, so that when it comes to race day, you have enough energy, you don't bonk and just obviously not finish. So the framework is made up of three workouts. The first workout is 5 sets of 3-minute hard intervals. So this is to increase your VO2 max. You usually do this in your zone 4 or zone 5 intervals from your heart rate perspective. The next workout is 30 minutes at your threshold pace. So this is the pace at which you can't hold a conversation. Relatively tough, but it's not in the likes of your VO2 max workouts where you're looking at zone 5. Lastly, it is a 90-minute long run. So this should be at your conversational pace. So your zone 2, you could easily hold a conversation with someone that you're walking beside. I often talk to myself just to make sure that obviously I'm not like completely out of breath in between sentences, just make sure that I'm on the right track. Obviously a heart rate monitor or your watch will do the same job for you as well. Okay, so to summarize, if you want to get a faster 5k, 10k marathon time, you don't need to run 100 or 200 kilometers per week. Point 2 is that you can achieve 90% of your aerobic power or potential on race day by just doing 40 to 50 kilometers of running per week. Step 3 is that you can use this framework every single week in order to achieve those goals. So 5 times 3-minute intervals, 30 minutes at your threshold pace, and a 90-minute long run. 3 workouts each week, no 100 kilometer weeks, no 200 kilometer weeks, and I guarantee you'll hit your goal.